Every time you tap or swipe your card, a tiny unseen money machine springs into action. It pulls a few cents from your purchase, quietly, and funnels them into someone else's pocket. Who's getting rich off those few cents? And why have banks kept the secret for decades? What if a hidden income stream has been flowing under our noses every time we make a payment? One that banks and payment giants profit from endlessly, yet they hope you never notice. Today, we unravel the hidden passive income model banks don't want you to know. Our story begins in the late 1950s. Banks were looking for new ways to profit, not just from loans and deposits, but from the very movement of money. In 1958, Bank of America conducted a bold experiment in Fresno, California. They mailed out 60,000 unsolicited credit cards to residents in a single day. It was risky. Fraud ran rampant at first, but by 1961, Bank of America's card program finally turned profitable, creating a brand new revenue stream. And guess what? At first, the bank kept it quiet to avoid alerting competitors. Banks had discovered a golden goose. By letting customers buy on credit and charging merchants a fee for each sale, banks could make money every time someone made a purchase. They realized that money could be made not just on interest or account fees, but on every swipe of a card, earning money on the movement of money itself. This was a seismic shift. Banks went from profiting only when money sat in accounts or was loaned out, to profiting whenever money flowed through the new payment networks. By the late 1960s and 1970s, this experiment had evolved into something much bigger. Bank of America's card, Bank Americard, spun off into an association of banks that we now know as Visa. Rival banks formed Mastercard, today's Mastercard. These card networks were essentially owned and operated by banks, creating a toll road for payments. In fact, Visa grew into one of the most valuable companies in the world by operating these payment tolls, sporting gross profit margins of up to 98% on tens of billions in revenue. The strategy was clear: dominate the payment rails and skim a tiny fee from every transaction. Over time, this model spread worldwide, with Visa and Mastercard today controlling roughly 90% of global card transactions outside of China. A duopoly built by banks to capture fees on virtually every purchase. But how exactly do those fees work and where do they come from? To understand the hidden income machine, we need to reveal the mechanics behind a single swipe. Let's lift the curtain on what happens when you swipe your card to buy something. Imagine you purchase a $100 item with a credit card. You might think $100 leaves your account and $100 goes to the merchant. Not quite. In reality, the merchant will end up with only about $98. Where did the other approximately $2 go? It's split among the hidden players of the payment processing world. Here's the cast of characters: the issuing bank, the customer's bank that gave you the card, the acquiring bank or processor, the merchant's bank or payment service, and the card network, Visa/Mastercard, acting as the communication highway. For that $100 purchase, your issuing bank takes a fee right off the top, roughly $1.75 in this example, as an interchange fee. Think of interchange as the toll paid to the bank that issued the card. Then the card network, Visa or Mastercard, also charges a tiny slice, about 18 cents here, for routing the transaction. Lastly, the acquiring side, the merchant's payment processor or bank, takes the remaining portion, say 7 cents, as their fee for servicing the merchant account. Altogether, those fees, about $2 on $100, are often called the merchant discount fee. This happens every single time you pay with a card. It's tiny per purchase, often around 2 to 3% of the transaction, so most consumers barely notice. But at scale, it's enormous. In the United States, these hidden fees, especially interchange, add up to over $30 billion every year flowing to banks and card networks. Interchange fees are actually the largest component of what merchants pay for card acceptance. Roughly 70 to 90% of the fees go straight to the issuing banks. The issuing banks, often big banks, and that are quietly raking in the majority of those billions. And remember, this is money they make even if you never carry a credit card balance. It's not interest or late fees. It's basically a slice of every sale. Why hasn't the average person heard about this money printing machine? One reason is that it's largely invisible to consumers. You pay $100, you get $100 worth of goods. The fees are absorbed by the merchant as a cost of doing business. Banks and payment companies have little incentive to shout about these fees from the rooftops. In fact, for years, they thrived in obscurity. Even as recently as 2007, only about 1/3 of the public had ever heard of interchange fees at all. When informed, people were shocked. 90% believed companies should be forced to disclose these fees more clearly. There's also a deliberate complexity at play. The payment industry is filled with opaque terms and middlemen, acquirers, processors, ISOs, gateways, that makes the fee structure hard to untangle for outsiders. This complexity works in favor of the established players. It's a bit like a secret sauce that outsiders find intimidating to learn. And so for decades, banks and major payment processors have happily collected fees while most people remain in the dark about how it all works. But here's the twist. Some savvy professionals did figure it out. They realized you don't need to be a big bank to capture part of those payment fees. In fact, there are two main paths: referral partners, who simply pass along leads and get a small finder's fee, and agents, sub-ISOs, who actually sign and manage merchants, earning ongoing residuals month after month. It's the agent model that builds true passive income. Welcome to the present day. Credit cards and digital payments are everywhere, and that means the transaction fee machine is bigger than ever. Traditionally, banks and large payment companies gobbled up those fees. But now, an increasing number of savvy individuals and small firms are quietly tapping into this stream of money, effectively becoming payment processing partners or brokers. They're often called merchant agents, or ISOs, independent sales organizations, and they can earn a slice of those fees by connecting merchants to payment processors. Here's how it works in plain English. If you help a business set up their credit card processing, for example, by referring them to a payment processor or setting them up with a merchant account, you can negotiate to receive part of the processing fee every time a customer swipes their card at that business. This is typically a recurring commission known as residual income. It means once you board a merchant, you keep getting paid month after month, year after year, as long as that merchant's customers keep buying things with cards. Sound a bit like collecting tolls on a busy road? That's exactly the idea, but on a smaller scale. And you can be the one collecting. Many people, even business owners, are surprised to learn this opportunity exists. As one industry expert put it, we're all familiar with digital payments, but few realize you could become a payment processing broker yourself. Yet it's very real and potentially lucrative. In fact, insiders say residuals from payment processing are among the most lucrative forms of recurring revenue. Unlike a one-time sale, these commissions repeat as long as merchant sales continue to be made. Let's break down a concrete example of how this passive income can grow with some simple math. Suppose you sign a local business, say Joe's Coffee Shop, as a merchant on your processing portfolio. Joe's Coffee processes about $100,000 in card sales each month. On average, an agent, sub-ISO, earns around 0.5% in residuals on the merchant's processing volume. That means Joe brings in about $500 per month in residuals every single month. Not life-changing by itself, but remember, once Joe's up and running, you're not doing much. That $500 just arrives passively, covering bills or padding savings month after month. Now imagine you don't stop at one coffee shop. What if you sign up 5 similar merchants every month? It could be a restaurant, a retail store, an e-commerce business, each bringing in a slice of recurring revenue. After a year, you might have approximately 60 merchants. After 2 years, perhaps 120 merchants. Let's stick with our modest $500 per merchant per month figure. 120 merchants times $500 each equals $60,000 per month in residual income. That's about $720,000 per year coming in largely on autopilot. This isn't a fanciful scenario. It's an illustrative model published by payment industry veterans. Real agents in the field do achieve portfolios like this over time because residuals scale with every merchant you add, and with the volume, they continue to process. Even on a smaller scale, the numbers are compelling. Perhaps you refer just a few businesses as a side hustle, say 10 merchants doing similar volumes. Even that could yield around $1,200 a month in extra income, enough to cover a car payment or pad your savings. And if any of those businesses grows, imagine one store expands into a chain and their processing volume doubles, your income grows with them without any extra work on your part. It's truly scalable passive income. One entrepreneur who trains people in this field described it like this: out of all the forms of passive income I've discovered, this may be one of the most, if not the most, passive of them all, because once you lock in an account, you're earning between 0.01% to 1% of every single transaction that goes through that business. In other words, you do the work once to get a client on board, and you could reap tiny slices of every sale that client ever makes going forward. Now, let's be clear, this isn't a get-rich-quick gimmick. You don't just snap your fingers and have 120 clients. Building a portfolio of merchants takes work. Finding businesses who want a better deal on processing, closing them, maybe providing some customer service to keep them happy, not to mention brokering reseller agreements with banks and payment processors to even have payment solutions to offer to merchants. It's a real business opportunity, not a lottery ticket, but it's a business model with extraordinary retention and passive payoff. Once a merchant is up and running, they rarely switch providers if they're satisfied. Switching can be a hassle. That means if you introduce them to a good solution, your residuals can keep coming for years with minimal maintenance. In industry terms, merchant accounts are sticky. Let's keep the merchant happy and the income stream sticks with you. Technology and modern fintech companies have also made it easier than ever to participate. You no longer need to be a bank or a large payment company to get involved. Many payment processors now offer partner programs where individuals can sign up as agents. For example, there are programs where you simply introduce a business via email and the company handles the rest, then pays you a commission. Some pay a flat referral fee initially and then begin paying you a percentage of the revenue once you've referred a certain number of clients. In short, the door is open for virtually anyone with a bit of hustle and networking ability to start building a passive income from payment processing. It's the same model that fattened banks' profits for decades, now accessible on a smaller scale to individuals. So there we have it, the hidden passive income model that built banking fortunes while keeping everyone else in the dark. For years, banks harvested those insignificant transaction fees, building empires on pennies while carefully guarding how the system actually works. The payment industry's complexity was their shield. It's not taught in schools or discussed on finance shows, and your bank teller certainly won't suggest you become their competition. This intentional obscurity protected their cash cow, but anyone willing to learn can break in. You don't need banking credentials or tech expertise, just education and the right payment partnerships. The industry actually wants new agents to fuel growth, and resources exist to guide newcomers through the terminology and pricing layers. Here's the opportunity. 99% of businesses need payment processing. That's virtually every business as a potential client in a market that's exploding as cash disappears. The ethical approach works best. Top agents help merchants save money with better rates and service, earning residuals by creating genuine value. Businesses win with lower costs, partners win with passive income. Banks resist this knowledge spreading because competition threatens their monopoly on merchant accounts and fee structures. But as more people discover payment intermediation, the landscape shifts toward better deals for businesses and financial freedom for individuals. Payment processing's passive income engine is no longer exclusive to giant banks. It lacks the flash of crypto or startups, but it's real, steady, and proven, silently minting money around the clock. Will you let banks collect all the tolls or claim your share? Comment, guide me for a free step-by-step breakdown. The knowledge is out there. You just need to act on it. Thanks for watching Profits from Payments. Hit like and subscribe for more finance deep dives. Remember, money never stops moving, and someone always profits. Make sure it's you.